the Chase Thomas Podcast. For people who have nothing but time to kill.
We'll pull. Shut might. You never know. He's always lurking in the weeds. You don't know.
If he's golfing or not.
Oh, that's true. It doesn't seem like he works as much these days. It just feels like he talks a lot about the course and golf and Titans and literally anything other than the important stuff, you know?
He puts a good show on social media to make it seem like he's working.
Yes.
When in reality, he has scheduled tweets while he is golfing to make it look like he is working. The only work that he does is scheduling tweets to make it look like he's working.
And I tell people all the time, I'm like, Ben McKee's the one who's actually grinding. He's never scheduled a tweet. He's the one out here constantly just making sure that he gets his information out, articles, podcasts, Swain event, all kinds of stuff. Like there's no question about the level of genuine work you're putting in. With Shump, it's just a little bit more questionable.
Your check is in the mail. That's all I know.
There you go. Ben McKee, we have something to talk about. I have to pick your brain here before we even dive into the questions I want to throw at you. I was listening to Swain event earlier this week, and Jason Swain made a good point to you when you were talking about, like, it doesn't mean that if Tennessee starts multiple quarterbacks next year, that means things are not going well. And Swain made a good point of like, well, if you look at if a guy's not playing well or if an injury happens, whatever, you can still come in and Tennessee can still be winning games with poor quarterback play. And that's something I think is important for a lot of folks to remember is like going like the last 2 years, Tennessee has not had good quarterback play. Now, granted, very different circumstance the last 2 years, and you can get into why quarterback play was below average for the last 2 years. Different, like I said, we can dive in. There's more nuance there, but it was unquestionably below average quarterback play the last 2 years. This year, but you also won 19 games with below average quarterback play. You were shut out for a month straight in the first half this past year with bad quarterback play. You survived one of the worst offensive showings I've seen in Neyland in a long time against Texas A&M in 2023. You won that game with one of the more difficult offensive showings. The defense just raises the floor so much for Tennessee. And I think when Tennessee goes into that 12 personnel shell that they showed last year, and I mean, honestly, what you had with Jalen Wright in 2023, what you had with Dylan Sampson last year, maybe you have that again with Peyton Lewis. But I think fans who might be panicking or might assume that things did not go well for Tennessee or are not going well for Tennessee in the win-loss column because quarterbacks are getting rotated a little bit. I think Tennessee is unique in that way where I don't think that would be the case. I think Tennessee can win 8 or 9 games, even if they start minimum 2 starters this year.
I agree with that thought. My rebuttal would be, is 8 or 9 wins good enough? And the answer is
I think 9's good enough this year.
Maybe so. I do think there's certainly some circumstances to this season, but just generally speaking, the general year-to-year expectation of Tennessee football is to truly compete for a championship. And I guess now with the playoffs, it's to routinely be competing for a spot in the playoffs, and you should be pretty frequent participants in the playoffs and hosting playoff games. It's unrealistic to think that it will happen every year. It's a hard thing to accomplish. Very similar to baseball. It's like, oh, Tony Vitello is the greatest. Like he should be in Omaha every single season, when it's harder than ever to make it to Omaha because of parity in the sport. And I think with revenue sharing, you're going to see even more parity in college football. So not that it's an easy thing to do, but that's still the expectation that you are a perennial playoff contender, and just getting there is not good enough. You need to get there, and you need to make some noise. So, but with that being said, to your point, like there's obviously some circumstances and context and reasons as to why 9 wins would be good enough. Those aren't excuses given everything that took place with Nico. But I do think that this roster is still good enough to get you to 9 wins. And I feel like that is a very fair expectations. If you told me you can sign on the dotted line for 9 wins right now, or you can risk it, I'd sign on the dotted line right now and take it, run with it. hope that George McIntyre or Jake Merklinger is ready for a big 2026 and then get back into the playoffs then. But, the offensive line and the defensive line, it is going to look a little bit different, especially the offensive line. And I lumped the offensive line into the defense because I think the line of scrimmage will determine just how good this football team is. Of course, you can't have awful quarterback play. The turnover-prone nature of Joey Aguilar worries me a little bit. The inexperience of Merklinger or McIntyre, if he were able to pull off an upset victory in the quarterback battle, that worries me as well. But I think the line of scrimmage is going to determine how many games Tennessee wins this year. And I think you feel good about the interior of the offensive line. I think you feel a little bit better about the tackle situation. I think Lance Hurd needs to take a big step forward. David Sanders Jr., he'll be very good for a freshman, but he'll have his lumps as well, just like Trey Smith did, Darnell Wright did, all those other 5 stars that came through, Wanye Morris. But I still really like the defensive line, even though you lose a lot of guys off of last year's line. Jackson Moore is probably my favorite player on the team. I think he's just the next Omar Norman Lott in terms of being that second round, third round pick. I think he's going to have a great year. I love the passion and the energy he plays with. Josh Josephs, Caleb Herring, and it's their time. Tennessee needs a big year from them. You've got Bryson Eason, who has a professional career ahead of him, and you have several other guys who are capable of making plays as well. So, and there's several other positions we could talk about that you feel good about that will help you get to 9 wins. So I certainly think it's within reason, as long as the quarterback play doesn't go from average to bad. As long as you don't get bad quarterback play, this roster is still very capable of, I'd say, winning anywhere from 8 to 10 games. I wouldn't bet on winning 10 games, but I think it would be fair to, put that within realm of a projection, even if I think 8 and 9 is more likely.
I think that's fair. I do think what's interesting too, when you look at just quarterback, you talk about Jake and George. I'm a big Merklinger guy, and I think it's so fascinating because everyone like Faison Brandon obviously blowing up this week at Elite 11s. The Tristan Keys Faison Brandon combo that fans are thinking about right now, and there's a lot of reason for optimism. I mean, I think Faison's a better prospect than Nico was. Like, I think that is something that, and you didn't think Tennessee would add a better prospect at quarterback than Nico within 2 years, but that's exactly what Heupel and the staff have done. But again, the last word is the most important there. It's prospect. Like that's what people have to remember about these 5-star projections. It's just, there's 32 and you're projecting that they could be a first-round pick if everything goes according to plan. It doesn't mean they're coming in and they're going to play like a first-round pick in the NFL draft one day. That's just what they can ultimately get with their tools, their projection, that kind of thing. That being said, what you had this year and the reason that you really wanted Nico for this final year is not for the wins, because I think there's a reason that the 9.5 to 8.5 only went down 1 after Nico. Is I think this team was kind of quarterback proof either way. Like, yeah, maybe if Nico breaks through, you get to that 10, 11 wins and you kind of have that special season and get back to the CFP. We'll see. But this team is built on their defense now. They're built on their front 7. The secondary is now a strength of this team. There's a path to the secondary being even better than a year ago. You're only going to have blue chippers in the linebacker room for the first time in the Heupel era. I'm pretty confident that this defense is going to be just fine and raise the floor really high. I think the offensive line is going to be better than you've had the last couple of years too. I know you talked about Hurd. I mean, Hurd graded out better than Darnell Wright did his first year in Heupel's system last year. So Hurd came on a lot better down the stretch last year, and it's a big year for him because if he has a great year, he might be a first-round pick, second-round pick next year in the NFL draft. So for him, there's a lot of reasons for him to be locked in and to be a big-time 5-star left tackle that he was billed as coming in from LSU. David Sanders, I think you can't get worse right tackle play than what you got last year with the combination of John Campbell and Dane Davis. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It was just bad. And there's a lot of reasons that was the case, but there was no question. It was just bad. And you were in 12 personnel a lot because what was going on the right-hand side of the line. David Sanders, even if he's not like a plug and play, like A+ at right tackle, he's just got to be a B-. And you've got a really, really much better situation for who is ever under center this year. You're always going to be able to run the football with Heupel no matter who's in there. You've averaged 5 yards per carry all 4 years. But you had a clean battle at quarterback next year, and you've talked about this too, Ben, where if you had Nico this final year, it felt like either he balls out and goes to the NFL, or it doesn't go well and he's in the portal, because you have 2 years of evidence where it's like, this is just not working. That being said, you were going to have Faison versus Jake versus George as a clean winner to spring to summer battle, and just let the best player win. And then you solve it on the field, and it's one of the most intriguing, interesting quarterback battles at Tennessee in a really long time. Now, though, if Joey, and I think we're on the same page, I don't think Aguilar is going to be good. I don't think Aguilar is going to be a good fit here. I don't think it. He led FBS in interceptions last year and at 14. And to put that in context, that's 2 more than Carson Beck had a year ago. And it felt like Carson Beck was throwing a lot of picks for the Georgia Bulldogs last year. He was part of a staff that got cleaned out at App State. It was one of the worst seasons at App State they've had in a long time. Now, it doesn't all fall on Joey Aguilar, but that was a preseason G5 champ who was getting preseason CFP buzz. Like, that was not a rebuilding situation. He was walking into it. Go back and read. Like, there's been some revisionist history about Aguilar and App State in 2024 and all that. That being said, I don't think he's a natural fit. I don't think he's someone Heupel and the staff call if this Nico enters the December portal window. I think he's way down the list. I think he's in the 20s and 30s. Like, there's a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks I'm going to go ahead and guess that Tennessee is getting involved with before they call Joey Aguilar, if that's the case. If the Nico stuff happens in December, January, whatever. I don't think it's a clean fit. I think it's just more of like a veteran body. Let's hope he can get it. Let's hope. But I mean, it's 3 systems in 6 months. He just spent all spring learning a completely different system than what he was learning with Heupel. Merck spent May, throwing with Mike and Braylon and company. He has those relationships. I think he's a good leader. Has a lot of starts under his belt at Calvary Day, threw a lot of passes his junior and senior year down there in Savannah. By all accounts, had a good spring. I think there's some natural leadership qualities to Merck that I don't think it would be that big of a surprise to me if he gets an opportunity this fall and he just runs with it and Tennessee wins enough games and Tennessee just gets comfortable, because ultimately, as cool as the Faisons and the Nico are as a potential Heupel superstar quarterback, the best version we've seen is the Hendon Hooker machine, just one read, go, and just operate at a super high level, run when things break down. If it's not there on that first read, go. Don't throw picks, just high completion percentage. That is the best version of Tennessee's offense we've seen thus far in the Heupel era. They're number 1 in scoring. For me, if Jake can do that, if he gets an opportunity and he can be that Heupel machine and make those quick reads and read differences and Heupel trusts him over the middle, he's not giving up that job. Like, that's the best version of Tennessee's offense. And then it changes everything in the fall, in the winter, and next year's battle, because then you're like, well, Jake will be going into year 3. And if you get to 9-3 with Merklinger, like, are you really going to do a competition in the offseason? Or is it something like a Jake Fromm, Justin Fields situation in Georgia years ago, where it's like, I mean, he's just winning games. You can't go away from him now. And then you have potentially 3 more years of being your starting quarterback. So I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think people have to understand that things have changed in a big way in terms of where the trajectory is and who's going to be QB1 for Tennessee long term. I think the possibility is there for Merklinger and George, even George, to, if they get an opportunity this year, to change the course of that room and be the long-term guy for Tennessee and going forward. Is that fair?
It is fair that they have the opportunity. I'm not necessarily banking on it. I would be surprised if either of those 2 guys just took the job, ran with it. There's no quarterback competition next summer. I would be surprised if that's the case. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think Jake Merklinger has the potential to do so, but I think it's more likely that doesn't happen than it does happen, because he is a bit of a more developmental quarterback, more of a developmental prospect. I still think he's a year or 2 away, even with probably not 2 years, but certainly another year away from like truly being ready to be a full-time SEC starting quarterback. And he did make great strides in the spring, had a good spring by all accounts. They tweaked his throwing motion and the ball was coming out even better. But it's just a different beast, being a starting quarterback week to week in this league. compared to what you're doing in the spring. So he has a great opportunity in front of him. Both guys have a great opportunity. I don't think George McIntyre has been ruled out of it, ruled out of the competition either. I'm interested to see how well they coach up Joey Aguilar, because the turnover stuff does worry me. But he also has a big arm, and he also has a nice set of legs on him as well. And I think he fits more the mold of the Hendon Hooker, revitalizing the career mold, if that makes sense, more so than Merck does. So I do think kind of being turnover prone is part of your DNA, much like we see with Jameis Winston and so many other quarterbacks. I don't know that it's a trait that you can necessarily totally coach out of somebody, but I do think good coaches can limit the turnovers and get them to see things in a better way that helps them make better decisions and get the football to where it needs to be. So I'm not as down on Joey, but I do have my concerns, and I do agree with what you were saying that, like, if it's the winter portal window, he's probably not coming to Tennessee. I mean, he wasn't even Tennessee's first, second, or third choice in the spring window. There were other guys they were hoping that would jump into the portal, and he was kind of like, okay, they reached a point of where this is the best guy available. Let's take him, run with it, see if we can coach him up and see what we can make happen this year, and also bring along Merklinger and McIntyre as much as possible. Maybe they take the job and run with it. So I certainly think that's a fair thought. Merklinger and McIntyre have a phenomenal opportunity in front of them, especially Merklinger because he's been here a year longer. But I'd be lying if I said I thought that was going to happen, where he just plays well enough this season to where there's no competition next offseason. And it's not that I'm down on Jake Merklinger or anything. I think he has the skill set to be a good starting SEC quarterback. I just think he's a year away. And I think his timeline has been sped up for him. And I don't know that that's the best thing to throw him in the fire. He wasn't going to beat out Nico after all, and he is quarterback play, as you mentioned, has been average the last 2 years. Nico was average at best last year, and Merklinger wasn't going to be able to beat out Nico this season. And the other thing is, like, I don't trust the receiver room. So I think that's also going to hold Joey Aguilar and Jake Merklinger, whoever's the quarterback. I think the receiver room is going to hold back the quarterback position. They've got a lot of talent in the room, but it's a lot of young talent. And I also kind of think that they're a year away as well. You need the offensive line to be more consistent. So I just don't know that it's the situation as a whole offensively is just advantageous for a quarterback to take the job and run with it.
I love it. On the baseball front here, Ben, of all the Tennessee transfer portal additions they've added thus far, who do you think is going to end up being the most important in 2026 for the Vols' success?
Well, I don't have a long list to pick from.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.